The sun scorched the suburban street, reflecting off the polished chrome of my Mustang. Tires spinning slightly, I leaned against the car, calm, watching chaos unfold. "Give me that car." A bratty teen screamed, pointing at my Mustang like he owned the world. Behind him, his mother, the infamous HOA Karen, stomped forward, red face, veins popping. "I'm calling the cops," she yelled, shrill and venomous. I smirked, unbothered. Within seconds, 2 uniformed officers arrived, their badges gleaming in the sunlight. But they froze when they saw me step forward. "You really thought you could bully me?" I said, voice low but deadly. "I am the police chief." The street went silent, her son's jaw dropped. Karen's face turned pale. Adrenaline surged as she lunged forward, screaming, but I was already moving, Mustang door slamming behind me. Tires screeched, heartbeats raced, and the standoff was set. No one was walking away the same. I had seen entitled behavior before. HOA Karen had perfected it over years of suburban terror. Laws she twisted, neighbors she manipulated. But today her arrogance had a price. Her son, a spoiled brat in designer sneakers, ran his hand over my Mustang, smirking. "It's mine now," he declared, confidence dripping like venom. "You're what?" I said, stepping closer, each word deliberate. "You want my car. You want to fight me for it." Karen stepped in, waving her arms like a storm. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. This is a community matter. Cops will." I didn't let her finish. My hand went to my belt, not for a weapon, but to remind them both that I carried authority. "You call them," I said, nodding at the arriving officers. "Funny thing, I am the police chief." The 2 cops froze, one blinking rapidly, realizing the absurdity. Karen gasped. Her son's smirk faltered, turning to fear. "Step back," I warned, voice growing colder, sharper, "or I'll remove both of you from this street myself." She lunged anyway, fingers clawing, screams cutting the air. I grabbed her wrist in one fluid motion, twisting to hold her in place. The boy yelled, charging at me, and I sidestepped, spinning him off balance. Tires squealed in the background, neighbors peeking from windows, capturing every second of this suburban war. "Do you see now?" I shouted, my eyes locking on Karen's terrified glare. "This ends now. No threats, no lies, no games. My Mustang stays here. You walk away, or you face consequences." The adrenaline buzzed through my veins. This was only the beginning. Today, entitled ignorance met real authority, and I would make sure the lesson was unforgettable. Karen stumbled back, clutching her chest like she'd just seen a ghost. Her son, died, shook his head. You're the police chief." He sputtered. I didn't answer. I let the tension simmer, letting every second stretch, every neighbor's gasp amplify the moment. The street was a powder keg. One wrong move and it would blow. Karen's voice cracked as she shouted, "This isn't over. I run this neighborhood." I laughed, low and dangerous. "Run it. You run nothing. You harass, you threaten, you manipulate. That ends today." Her son stepped forward again, fists clenched. "You think you can just tell us what to do? I know I can." I replied, stepping closer, boots crunching against the gravel. "Because unlike you, I don't hide behind fake authority. I enforce the law, and I protect what's mine, and that includes this car." He charged, swinging wildly. I sidestepped, grabbed his arm, spun him around, and pushed him back with a firm shove. He crashed into a trash can, metal clanging, neighbors flinching at the sound. Karen screamed, lunging at me again. I grabbed her shoulders, twisting gently but firmly, holding her back. "Enough," I bellowed, voice echoing down the street. "Do you want this to get really ugly?" 2 uniformed officers hovered awkwardly nearby, unsure whether to intervene. I glared at them. "You're here to observe, not to guess. Stand down unless I call you." Karen's son scrambled to his feet, face red with fury and embarrassment. "You can't just do this. You'll what?" I interrupted sharply. "Call someone else. Complain to the HOA board. They don't matter when the law is standing right in front of you." The street fell silent again, tension so thick you could cut it with a knife. I stepped back, letting the Mustang gleam in the sun like a beacon of authority and defiance. Then a new sound broke the tension, a screech of tires. Another car pulled up fast, the engine roaring. Karen's eyes widened. "Back up!" She whispered. I smirked. Good, more witnesses. From the car emerged 3 men in plain clothes, moving quickly, hands on holsters, but not aggressive. They stopped when they recognized me, nodding. Chief, one said quietly. I turned back to Karen and her son. Your friends are here. Mine are already standing. You still want to test me? Her son stammered, shaking. Karen's face went pale. Sweat beaded on her forehead. The suburban battlefield was set, and the rules were clear. I was in command, and anyone foolish enough to test me would regret it. Fine. She spat finally, voice trembling. You win this time, but this isn't over. I smiled coldly. Oh, it is over. At least for today. The Mustang gleamed between us, unscathed, untouchable, a symbol of who really held power in this neighborhood. But I knew. This was only the beginning. The fight was far from finished, and I had a long road ahead to teach the HOA tyrants their place. Karen's face twisted in fury, eyes darting between me, my backup, and her panicked son. You think this changes anything? She shrieked. I'll have you removed from this neighborhood. You'll regret. I cut her off with a single step forward, voice like steel. You'll regret nothing. You've already overstepped. Today, I decide what justice looks like, and it starts here. Her son clenched his fists again, but this time he hesitated. He knew, deep down, I wasn't bluffing. His arrogance wavered under the heat of authority. Then came the first move. Karen lunged toward the Mustang, trying to grab the keys dangling from my belt. I reacted instantly, intercepting her wrist in a tight grip, twisting her forward just enough to make her stumble without hurting her seriously. She yelped, caught off guard, and spun around, glaring daggers. You're lucky I don't press charges right now, I said, voice low and dangerous. Her son, emboldened by his mother's defiance, swung at me again, fists flailing wildly. I sidestepped, grabbed his arm mid-swing, and executed a controlled push, sending him crashing into a trash can. Metal clanged loudly, the sound echoing down the suburban street. Neighbors peeked from windows, phones raised. Some whispered, some gasped. The quiet, orderly street had erupted into chaos, a real, life battle of wills. Karen shrieked again, trying to scramble toward the Mustang. I stepped between her and the car, stance wide, my eyes locked on hers. Stop, step back, now. You're not the law, you're just a... I leaned in, cutting her off sharply. I am the law, and this ends here. You either walk away or you face consequences you can't imagine. Her son pushed himself up again, rage boiling over. You're insane. You can't. Before he could finish, one of my backup officers stepped forward, calm but imposing, blocking his path. The boy froze, his bravado evaporated under the weight of reality. Karen's voice cracked as she shouted, You think you've won. You haven't seen the board yet. I control this neighborhood. I smirked. You controlled fear, but today you're learning the hard way. Fear isn't respect. Power isn't inherited. You earn it or you lose it, and you've lost. She stumbled back, muttering under her breath, eyes wild. The boy's knees buckled slightly, shame and disbelief washing over him. I took a slow, deliberate step toward the Mustang, letting the tension rise, letting everyone see who truly held authority. Suddenly, a screech of tires announced more chaos. A delivery truck had stopped abruptly, the driver gawking at the standoff. Karen's eyes widened in panic. They're recording this. I smiled coldly, unshaken. Good, let the world see who's entitled and who's in charge. The street, once quiet, now thrummed with energy. Shouts, honks, and murmurs filled the air, but I stood firm, Mustang gleaming behind me, ready for whatever Karen or her allies tried next. Because this wasn't just about a car anymore. It was about teaching Entitlement a lesson it would never forget. Karen's face contorted, fury mixing with panic. You can't humiliate me like this. She screamed, stepping toward the Mustang again. Her fingers twitched, ready to grab or scratch, but I didn't flinch. My eyes never left hers. You already have, I said, voice cold and deliberate, every neighbor watching, every camera, every lie you've built is crumbling. Step back. Her son, red, faced and trembling, shouted, You think you can push us around? I don't care if you're the police chief. I interrupted with a sharp clap of my hands, loud enough to turn heads down the street. You'll what? Make a scene? Prove how entitled you are? You've already lost this fight. Step back. Karen's eyes narrowed, and in a sudden, desperate move, she grabbed a garden chair nearby, swinging it toward me. I barely sidestepped, the chair smashing against the concrete with a deafening crash. Shards of metal and plastic flew into the air. "Really?" I said, voice low and dangerous, glaring at her. "Is this all you've got?" Her son lunged again, fists swinging. I caught him mid-motion, twisting his arm behind his back. He grunted, struggling, but I kept control. "Enough," I growled. "Do you want your mother to be next?" Karen froze, realizing her own son's safety was on the line. Panic flickered across her face, and for the first time I saw cracks in her armor. Neighbors whispered, some recording, others why, died at the chaos. A dog barked somewhere down the street. I took a slow, deliberate step forward, letting the Mustang gleam behind me like a symbol of authority and control. Karen's voice trembled. You can't do this. You'll pay for this humiliation." "I already am being paid," I replied, smirking. "Paid in seeing entitlement meet reality. Step away, or this escalates further. And I promise it won't be pretty." She glanced around, finally noticing my backup officers moving closer, hands on their belts, calm but ready. Her son stumbled back, chest heaving. The adrenaline was overwhelming, and they realized they were trapped. Suddenly, Karen made one last desperate move. She lunged toward the Mustang, screaming, ready to snatch the keys. In a blur, I intercepted, grabbing her wrist and twisting just enough to unbalance her, sending her sprawling to the ground. The boy screamed, trying to pull her up, but one of my officers stepped between them. "Back off," he warned. I stood over Karen, voice sharp, eyes icy. "Today, you've learned a lesson. Intimidation ends when the law stands in front of you. This Mustang isn't yours. This street isn't yours, and your lies exposed." Her son's knees buckled, shame and anger mixing violently. Karen's breath came in gasps, rage simmering beneath fear. I stepped back, letting the street absorb the moment. The Mustang sparkled in the sun, untouched, untouchable. The chaos had peaked, but I knew this battle, this confrontation, was far from over. And deep down I was ready for every desperate move they'd throw next. The air on the street felt electric, every neighbor frozen in disbelief. Karen lay on the pavement, face flushed with rage and humiliation, her son behind her, trembling yet furious. The Mustang gleamed like a trophy, untouched, the center of the suburban battlefield. "You think this ends here?" Karen spat, her voice sharp but shaking. She pushed herself up, claws still twitching toward me. "You humiliate me in front of everyone, and you think you can walk away clean." I took a deliberate step forward, boots crunching against the gravel. "I don't think I know. You've built your entire life on entitlement and fear. Today, you're going to see what happens when someone with real authority refuses to bend." Her son shouted, chest heaving, veins popping. "You're insane. You can't just take over like this." "I can," I said, voice calm but deadly. "Because unlike you, I don't hide behind lies, fake threats, or HOA rules twisted to suit my ego. I enforce the law. I protect what's mine, and this," I gestured to the Mustang, "is mine." Karen lunged again, desperate, fingers outstretched. I grabbed her wrist midair, twisting to redirect her momentum. She spun, screaming, and nearly fell again, catching herself on the curb. Her son saw an opening. He charged reckless, flailing fists. I sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and threw him forward, forcing him to stumble into the hedge at the side of the street. Leaves and branches tore at his clothes, and he let out a frustrated yell. "You're crazy," he barked, scrambling to stand. "Crazy," I repeated, smirking. "No, focused, that's the difference. You act on impulse, I act on control. Every move calculated, every outcome inevitable." Karen glared, fury and fear clashing on her face. She darted toward a decorative fountain, grabbing a stone vase, ready to throw. I didn't hesitate. One step, one motion, and intercepted her, pushing the vase to the ground. It shattered, water and ceramic spraying everywhere, neighbors flinching at the crash. "You're finished," I said, voice echoing down the suburban street. "You've run out of tricks, out of luck, out of options." Her son, shaking with rage, made another reckless move, lunging at me head on. I pivoted, catching his shoulder, spinning him into the hood of the Mustang. The metallic clang reverberated down the block. His breath left him in a sharp wheeze. "You still don't get it, do you?" I said, voice rising, commanding every inch of attention. "This isn't about a car anymore. This is about entitlement versus reality, and reality wins, every single time." Karen screamed, her voice high and desperate. "Neighbors, someone help, he's attacking us." I ignored her. Instead, I locked eyes with her son, leaning closer. "I warned you. This is what happens when you challenge authority without understanding it. Fear isn't power. Respect is earned, or enforced when you refuse to listen." The street was silent, every neighbor watching, every phone recording. The intensity crackled like electricity. Karen's face drained of color. Her son's bravado melted into defeat, trembling beneath the weight of humiliation. I stepped back, allowing the Mustang to shine between us, a gleaming symbol of dominance. "Walk away now, you've learned your lesson and the world saw it." Karen finally stumbled back, muttering, dragging her son with her. "This isn't over," she hissed, rage barely contained. I raised an eyebrow. "It is over, at least for today." The sun reflected off the Mustang's hood, blinding and proud. The suburban battlefield had been won, but deep inside, I knew the real war. The war against entitlement, arrogance, and obsession with control was far from finished. I took a deep breath, letting the adrenaline fade, knowing this standoff would be remembered by everyone who witnessed it, and that knowledge was power. Karen's heels clicked sharply against the concrete as she stormed back toward her SUV, dragging her son behind her. Her face was red with fury, but her eyes darted nervously toward me. "You think you can humiliate me and walk away?" she shrieked. I didn't move. I let the Mustang shine in the sunlight, my posture calm but commanding, my presence filling the street like a force field of authority. "I already did humiliate you," I said, voice low, deliberate. "And I will continue to protect what's mine. Step back or this escalates further." Her son, shaking with rage and embarrassment, spat on the ground. "You're insane, you can't just—" I interrupted sharply, stepping forward. "I can, and I just did. You've tested me, and you've lost." Karen slammed the SUV door, fumbling with her phone. "Back up. Now, get the board here. Get anyone who can stop him." She barked into the line, desperation dripping from every word. I smirked. "You're calling for help. Perfect. Let's see how your little allies handle real authority." A few minutes later, a convoy of black SUV and sedans rolled up, tires screeching slightly on the asphalt. Men and women in suits poured out, clipboard, wielding HOA enforcers and so-called security personnel, all looking important. Their confidence faltered the instant they realized who stood in front of them. "I'm the police chief," I announced loudly, voice echoing across the street. "All of you, step back. This ends here. No one moves unless I allow it." Karen's face turned white, her son's jaw dropped. The enforcers exchanged nervous glances. Some whispered, some fumbled with radios. One man stepped forward, trying to assert authority. "Sir, this is a community matter." I cut him off with a sharp hand gesture. "Not anymore. This is my jurisdiction. I enforce the law here. Back off or face consequences." Karen's son tried again, charging toward me like some enraged animal. I sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and spun him around, shoving him firmly against the hood of my Mustang. He grunted, defeated and gasping for air. "You still don't get it," I said, voice cutting through the chaos. "This isn't about a fight, it's about control. You've chosen poorly." Karen screeched, stomping her heels against the pavement. "Everyone, attack him, take him down." Her enforcers hesitated, uncertainty spreading like wildfire. One of them stepped forward, only to freeze when he realized every move he made was under my scrutiny. My backup officers flanked me, calm and ready, a silent wall of authority. I took a slow, deliberate step forward, voice loud enough to carry to every neighbor watching. "You're all making a big mistake. Leave now, and no one gets hurt. Try anything else, and I promise you, the outcome will be very public and very humiliating." Karen's eyes narrowed, fury simmering, but fear creeping in. Her son sagged against the car, shoulders trembling. One of her enforcers muttered something to the others, and slowly, hesitantly, they began to retreat. I let them move back, each step deliberate, making sure they felt the weight of their failure. Karen's SUV sat idly, engine running, her fury replaced by disbelief. You think this ends here? She hissed, voice low now. I shook my head, calm, icy, no, but it ends today. Consider this your first and only warning. The Mustang stays, the street stays under law, and you. I locked eyes with her, letting my words linger like a blade. You've learned that authority isn't taken with screams and entitlement. It's enforced. The Mustang sparkled between us, untouched, untouchable. Karen and her crew retreated, muttering threats that I didn't even hear clearly. Neighbors whispered, phones recorded, and I knew this showdown would be remembered for weeks. I stepped toward my car, unlocking the doors, letting the adrenaline settle. The standoff was over, for now. But deep inside, I knew Karen wouldn't give up, and I was ready. Karen retreated to the edge of her driveway, fists clenched, jaw tight. Her eyes flicked toward her son, who slumped against the SUV, still trembling from the confrontation. You think this ends here? She hissed, voice low but seething. No one humiliates me and gets away with it. No one. I watched her carefully, keeping my stance firm in front of the Mustang. Go ahead. Make your move. I said, voice calm, almost teasing. I'm ready for whatever desperate scheme you've cooked up. Her lips curled into a sly, venomous smile. Desperate? Oh, you have no idea. She grabbed her phone again, fingers flying over the screen. A few minutes later, a small convoy of black SUV pulled into the street. Not the same enforcers as before, but new, more aggressive-looking people. Her allies handpicked, ready to challenge authority. Karen's son straightened slightly, thinking maybe this would turn the tide. I stepped closer to the Mustang, voice rising so every neighbor could hear. You brought backup. Good. That makes two things clear. First, your fear of reality. Second, your inability to face me directly. You're predictable. One of her new enforcers, a bulky man in a dark suit, stepped forward aggressively. Step aside, Chief, he barked. This is a neighborhood matter. You don't get to. I cut him off with a sharp glance. Neighborhood matter, no, you're here to bully, intimidate. Control, that ends now. He hesitated, unsure. I took a deliberate step forward, the Mustang gleaming behind me like a shield of authority. Step closer, and you'll find out what happens when someone with real power faces entitlement in action. Karen shrieked, lunging toward me with a trash can lid in hand, swinging wildly. I sidestepped, grabbed her wrist, and twisted just enough to make her stumble into her son, sending both crashing into the side of the SUV. The crash of metal and muffled yells filled the air, neighbors gasping, phones recording every second. Are you done yet? I shouted, voice echoing down the street, because I can keep this up until you learn your lesson. Her son scrambled to his feet, rage boiling. You can't just humiliate us like this. I stepped closer, hand firmly on his shoulder, pressing him back against the Mustang. You already lost. Step down or make things worse for yourself. Your choice. Karen, recovering, shouted into her phone again. Get more, now. Her desperation was palpable. Fear and fury mixed into a dangerous cocktail. One of her men started to move, trying to flank me. I didn't hesitate. I stepped forward, putting my shoulder into his chest, spinning him around, sending him stumbling back into the curb. He groaned, clutching his side. Karen's face turned ashen. Her son's bravado faltered completely. Mom, maybe we should shut up. She snapped, voice cracking, fury mingled with fear. I'm not done here. I took a slow, deliberate step toward Karen, voice cold and commanding. This ends now, today. Your attempts at schemes, threats, and intimidation won't work. You brought reinforcements, fine. They'll see first. And what happens when you underestimate someone with authority, skill, and resolve? Her SUV engines revved nervously, her allies shifting, realizing the situation was spiraling out of their control. The street had gone silent, except for the occasional gasp and the sound of the Mustang's polished chrome glinting in the sun. A silent warning that no one would touch it. I raised my voice, letting it carry. Walk away. Leave your schemes behind. Take your son and retreat while you still can, or continue. And the consequences will be unforgettable, public, humiliating, and irreversible. Karen's hands shook. Her son glanced at me, defeated. For the first time, I saw hesitation, fear creeping into their eyes. This wasn't the end. They'd likely plan again. But today, victory was mine. The Mustang gleamed between us, untouched, untouchable, a symbol of law, authority, and control. And I knew this standoff would echo through the neighborhood for weeks. Because in the battle of entitlement versus real authority, only one side walks away standing. Karen backed away, muttering under her breath, eyes darting like a cornered predator. Her son shifted nervously, still shaking from the earlier confrontations. We can't just give up, he whispered, voice low, almost pleading. Karen spun toward him, fury blazing. Don't you dare talk like that. You'll do as I say. I stepped forward, calm but imposing, boots crunching against the gravel. You're both trembling. I said, voice deliberate, carrying over the street. Fear doesn't make you strong. Acting desperate doesn't make you clever. It only exposes your weakness. Karen's eyes narrowed. She was calculating now, realizing brute force wouldn't work. She began circling slowly, looking for an opening, a way to manipulate the crowd of neighbors who had gathered along the sidewalks. Neighbors, can't you see? He's abusing his authority. This isn't right. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I let the murmurs of the crowd grow, tension rising. Every head turned toward her, some whispering, some recording, phones lifting like silent witnesses. I could see the doubt creeping into her own allies' faces. They were starting to question her judgment. Her son suddenly blurted, we'll leave, but you can't humiliate Mom like this in front of everyone. I locked eyes with him, voice sharp. Humiliation is earned, son. You learned that today. Actions have consequences. Fear, arrogance, and entitlement don't protect you from reality. They guarantee your defeat. Karen's face twisted, realizing that even her psychological games were failing. You think you've outsmarted me, she shouted, attempting to circle toward the Mustang, pretending to adjust her stance to look innocent. I caught her movement instantly. Stop, step aside. She froze, then tried a new tactic. Bleeding, voice high and dramatic. Please, you don't understand. I'm trying to maintain order. You can't just order. I interrupted, voice booming, echoing down the street. This isn't order. This is chaos disguised as control. Your order has always been built on fear and entitlement. Today, you're seeing what real authority looks like. Her son started to argue again, but I raised a hand, cutting him off. Enough, you're not helping her. Every move you make only reinforces the lesson. Karen's lips quivered, trying to regain composure. You think you're untouchable, but I have connections. I know people. I smirked, stepping closer to the Mustang. Connections don't matter when reality is standing right in front of you. Skill, authority, and presence. They don't need connections. You see it now. Your allies are frozen. Your schemes are failing. Your son is learning the hard way. She shrieked, a mixture of rage and fear. Desperation lit her eyes as she glanced around at the crowd, realizing their judgment wasn't on her side. Every neighbor watching recorded the humiliation, the failed tactics, the collapse of her control. I allowed a brief pause, letting the silence stretch heavy and suffocating, forcing Karen to feel every second of defeat. Then I spoke again, slow and cutting. Walk away. Take your son. Leave this street. Today, you've seen what happens when entitlement meets authority. You've lost. Her son finally nodded, defeated, tugging at her arm. She stomped her foot in frustration, but took a cautious step back. The SUV her allies had arrived in remained idly parked. Engines running, but their occupants frozen, unsure what to do. I glanced at the Mustang, shining in the sunlight, untouchable, a symbol of victory. The neighborhood had witnessed a masterclass in dominance, strategy, and authority. The HOA queen and her spoiled son humbled completely. Karen's lips moved, whispering threats that no one heard clearly. But the lesson was clear. Authority wasn't negotiated with screams or manipulation. It was demonstrated, enforced, and respected. The street went quiet again, tension still lingering in the air. I took a deep breath, ready for whatever desperate move Karen might attempt next, but already confident the battle, at least for now, had been decisively won. Karen's face was a mask of fury and desperation. Her eyes darted toward the Mustang, then to her son, who was shaking slightly but trying to hide it behind bravado. I won't be humiliated like this. She screamed, fists clenched. No one embarrasses me and walks away. I didn't flinch. My boots dug into the gravel as I stepped closer, the Mustang gleaming behind me. You already have, I said, voice calm but deadly. And every second you continue this, you're proving the point. Entitlement never wins against authority, skill, and strategy. Karen took a deep breath, her face red, and then, suddenly, she lunged for her SUV. Get the keys, now, she shouted, her voice trembling with rage. Her son sprinted after her, hoping to assist, but I was already moving. One step, one motion. I blocked her path, intercepting her with ease. She screamed, flailing, trying to push past me. You've had enough, I said sharply, grabbing her wrist and twisting just enough to unbalance her. She stumbled, nearly hitting the curb, then turned to face me with wide eyes. Enough, step back, or it gets worse. She spun around, grabbing a metal garden stake from the lawn, raising it like a weapon. I didn't hesitate. One controlled step, and I grabbed the stake mid-swing, twisting it from her hands and tossing it aside. It clanged loudly against the pavement. Neighbors flinched, phones recording every second of her failed aggression. Her son tried again, charging recklessly. I sidestepped, grabbed his shoulder, and shoved him against the Mustang, forcing him to stop in his tracks. You still don't understand, I said, voice low and intense. This isn't about brute strength. It's about control. Every move you make reinforces your failure. Karen's eyes flicked around, calculating, desperate. She realized her physical attacks weren't working, her allies were frozen, and every neighbor was watching. Rage turned into panic. You'll regret this, she hissed, voice shaking. I have influence, I know people. You can't influence, I said, stepping closer, voice booming. Influence doesn't matter here, authority does. Strategy matters, skill matters, presence matters. You've already lost on all counts. Her son slumped against the SUV, defeated, shoulders trembling. Karen's allies remained frozen in place, engines running but unable to act. Every tactic she tried failed, crumbling under the weight of reality. Karen glared, her breathing rapid. Then, in a last-ditch attempt, she ran toward the Mustang again, hoping to grab the keys dangling from my belt. I moved instantly, one step, one motion, and intercepted her, pushing her back with firm authority. This ends now, I said, voice echoing down the street. One more move, and the consequences will be public, severe, and unforgettable. Her son grabbed her arm, trying to pull her back, but I raised a hand, stopping him. Let go. Today, you both learn a lesson that won't be forgotten. Karen froze, realizing the futility. She glared, trembling, then muttered something under her breath before finally taking a step back. Her son followed reluctantly, both defeated and exposed in front of the neighbors who had watched every humiliating second. I let the tension hang, letting the street absorb the moment. The Mustang gleamed behind me, untouchable, a symbol of victory and authority. Karen's last stand had failed spectacularly, and yet, deep down, I knew this wasn't the absolute end. Entitlement rarely gives up without a fight, but I was ready for whatever desperate move she would try next. Karen's breathing was ragged, her eyes wild with panic and fury. She backed toward her SUV, dragging her son along, her mind racing for any angle, any trick to regain control. You think this is over? She hissed, voice sharp and trembling. You humiliate me, and you think you walk away. No, I'll make sure you regret this. I remained perfectly still, boots firm on the asphalt, hands relaxed but ready. The Mustang glinted in the sunlight behind me, a symbol of dominance and control. You've already proven how desperate and reckless you are, I said slowly, voice carrying across the street. Every move you make just reinforces the lesson. Step back or it escalates, and you won't like the outcome. Her son tried to speak, his voice shaky. Mom, maybe we should silence. Karen snapped, spinning toward him. Do not lecture me. Then, in a sudden flash of desperation, she pulled her phone from her pocket again and began yelling into it. Send more. Now, everyone, stop him. A few new SUV appeared at the end of the street, tires screeching as their occupants spilled out, suits, HOA enforcers, and self-important security types, all marching forward with forced confidence. Karen's eyes gleamed with hope, believing sheer numbers could intimidate me. I stepped forward, slow, deliberate, letting every second stretch. More reinforcements, fine, I said, voice cold and controlled. The easier it is to see how futile entitlement is against authority. One of the newcomers, a burly man, stepped forward aggressively. Chief, step aside, this is a neighborhood matter. I tilted my head, voice rising like a whip crack. Neighborhood matter, no, you're here to bully, intimidate, manipulate, and none of that works today. Step back, or you'll see firsthand why I enforce the law. Karen, sensing the faltering confidence in her new allies, lunged again, flailing her arms wildly, screaming. I moved instantly, intercepting her, twisting her off balance. She stumbled, letting out a yelp as she hit the curb. Her son tried one more reckless move, charging toward me. I sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and spun him into the hood of the Mustang. Metal clanged, a sound that echoed down the block. He gasped for air, stunned and defeated. You still don't understand. I said, voice low, cutting. This isn't about muscle. This is about control, strategy, and authority. Every step you take proves my point. Karen, realizing brute force wasn't working, tried a new tactic. Pleading, her voice rising dramatically. Please, neighbors, someone help. He's abusing his authority. I let the murmurs of the crowd grow, letting the tension rise, letting every neighbor witness the spectacle. Her allies wavered, unsure what to do, some lowering phones to whisper. Her son's bravado crumbled completely. You're finished, I said, voice booming. All of your tricks, all of your schemes, all of your threats. Gone. Today, you've learned a lesson about entitlement, about reality, about authority. Walk away or it ends worse. Karen's lips quivered, rage and desperation flashing in her eyes. Finally, she spat on the pavement, muttered a string of curses, and stepped back. Her son followed, shaking, muttering apologies she didn't acknowledge. The crowd went silent, tension lingering like a storm cloud. I stepped back, letting the Mustang gleam between us, untouchable, untouchable, a symbol of victory and dominance. Karen's last desperate scheme had failed. Every tactic, every attempt at intimidation, every shout had collapsed under the weight of authority and skill. But deep inside, I knew she wouldn't stop trying. Entitlement rarely surrendered without planning her next desperate strike. And I would be ready. Karen retreated to the far end of her driveway, phone clutched tightly in one hand, eyes darting nervously between her son and me. Her mind raced, plotting her next move. Brute force had failed. Public shaming had failed. Authority had humbled her in front of everyone. Now, she needed subtlety, deception, manipulation, the kind of psychological warfare that preyed on fear and hesitation. Listen to me, son, she whispered sharply, pulling him close. We're not finished. He may have the law on his side, but the neighborhood, the people, they still respect me, you understand. The boy's face was pale, his previous bravado completely drained. Mom, they saw everything everyone saw. I don't care what they saw. Karen snapped, her voice trembling but forceful. We play smart now. Watch him, observe, wait for a slip. We don't fight him head on again. We manipulate. Subtlety wins wars he can't see coming. Meanwhile, I stayed perfectly still, aware of every movement, every twitch of her eyes, every whispered word to her son. Experience had taught me that people like Karen thrived on control, deception, and intimidation. But desperation left cracks, and I would exploit everyone. I spoke aloud, voice low but carrying across the street. Step away, Karen. Stop plotting. Stop hiding behind tricks. This isn't a game you can win. She froze, lips twitching, pretending to adjust her scarf, her gaze flitting toward her phone as if calling more reinforcements. Oh, I'm not hiding, she said, voice forced, attempting a calm she didn't feel. I'm strategizing. You wouldn't understand strategy. Her son shuffled nervously, glancing at the neighbors who were still lingering along the sidewalks, phones poised to capture every second. Mom, maybe we should. Quiet, she hissed, pinching the bridge of her nose. Not now, not in front of witnesses. You follow my lead. I smiled slightly, inwardly noting every misstep. Subtlety doesn't always succeed when desperation drives you. Every whispered command to her son, every glance toward her allies, every nervous adjustment of posture, it all revealed weakness. I stepped closer to the Mustang, deliberately slow, deliberate, letting my presence dominate the street. You're outmatched, I said, voice low and sharp. Every attempt to manipulate, every scheme, every whisper of sabotage. You're playing with fire. You've already lost. Walk away. Karen's eyes flicked toward the neighbors again, scanning for sympathy or support. None came. Her allies were frozen in place, unsure, waiting for orders that might never come. She clenched her phone like a lifeline, trembling, rage simmering beneath the surface. Her son's shoulders sagged. Mom, maybe we should leave. Shut up, she snapped, spinning toward him. Do not speak unless I allow it. She paused, taking a deep breath, then turned back to me. You think this is over because you scared us. You think you've won. You haven't even begun to understand the war you've started. I took another step forward, boots crunching against the gravel, eyes locked on hers. The war you speak of, you lost it the moment you stepped onto this street. Every step you take now only proves it further. Your son sees it. Your allies see it. The neighbors see it. You're exposed, Karen. Every scheme, every attempt at manipulation, it all collapses under the weight of authority, skill, and presence. Her lips curled in fury, her breathing rapid. You'll regret this. I'll find a way. Everyone will see. Everyone will know you. I cut her off sharply. No, you will regret this. Every desperate move you make, every trick you try, every attempt to manipulate. Public, humiliating, irreversible. Walk away. Today, this ends. The Mustang stays. The street stays under law. You have one last choice. Karen's phone slipped from her fingers in frustration. Her son finally muttered something under his breath, eyes wide, voice shaking. The street was silent except for distant murmurs from neighbors. I stepped back slightly, letting the Mustang gleam between us, untouchable, a symbol of victory. Karen's desperate attempts at sabotage and manipulation had failed spectacularly, yet I could see the seeds of future schemes planted in her mind. She glared, rage and fear mixing violently, before finally retreating further down her driveway, dragging her son with her. Her allies remained frozen, unsure what to do, powerless to intervene. I exhaled slowly, letting the tension linger. The battle today had been long, exhausting, and intense, but it had been won, and I knew deep inside Karen's desperation would only grow in the coming days. Karen's eyes blazed with a mix of rage and desperation. She had retreated to the far end of her driveway, her son slumping beside her, trembling but still trying to mask his fear with defiance. You think you've won, she hissed, voice cracking. This isn't over, not by a mile. I'll make you regret humiliating me. I stood firm in front of the Mustang, boots planted, posture relaxed but commanding. Regret. You brought this on yourself. Every step you take proves my point. Entitlement never wins against authority, strategy, and skill. Her son whispered something, his voice wavering. Mom, maybe we should just leave. Karen spun toward him, fury flashing. Silence, you will not speak unless I allow it. You think I've lost. You think we'll let him walk away with our pride. I have a plan. She snatched her phone and began rapidly typing, fingers flying as she orchestrated a desperate gambit. Within moments, a convoy of 3 black SUVs screeched into the street. From the vehicles poured men in dark suits. Karen's most loyal hand picked reinforcements. Their eyes glinted with the arrogance of people who believe power came from numbers, not skill. I didn't flinch. Instead, I let my gaze sweep over them, calm, measured, confident. More numbers, good. I said, voice carrying like a whip crack. It makes it easier for the world to see the difference between authority and entitlement. The first man stepped forward, chest puffed, attempting to assert dominance. Chief, step aside. This isn't your fight. Step back. I interrupted, voice low and deadly. This is my fight. This is my street. And this is your first and only warning. Karen shrieked, charging toward the Mustang, swinging a metal chair she had grabbed from the lawn. I moved instantly, intercepting her, twisting her wrist to redirect her momentum. She stumbled, crashing into her son, who tried to steady her but only fell along with her into the curb. The clash of metal and the sound of scraping pavement echoed down the block. Neighbors gasped, phones recording every second. Her son scrambled to his feet, rage boiling over. You can't do this. I sidestepped him effortlessly, grabbed his arm, and spun him against the Mustang's hood. Metal clanged under his weight. He grunted, breath leaving him in a sharp wheeze. I warned you, I said, voice sharp. This isn't about muscle, it's about control. Every step you take reinforces your failure. Karen, seething, pulled another chair from the porch, swinging wildly, screaming at me. I caught the swing effortlessly, redirecting the chair into the ground. Splinters flew. Her allies froze, unsure what to do, watching their leader unravel. You'll regret this, she screamed, eyes wide, frantic. I have connections. I know people. You can't. Connections. I said, stepping forward deliberately. Influence doesn't matter here. Skill does, strategy does, authority does, and every single one of your attempts has crumbled in front of the neighbors, in front of your own son, in front of everyone who saw what entitlement looks like when confronted by reality. Her son finally slumped against the curb, trembling. Karen's allies hesitated, looking at each other nervously. Their confidence was collapsing in real time. Karen's desperation reached its peak. She yanked a garden hose from the lawn, swinging it at me like a whip, hoping for a lucky strike. I moved forward calmly, caught the hose mid-swing and pulled, using her own momentum to send her stumbling backward onto the lawn, limbs tangled. She let out a sharp yell of frustration. The street had become a theater of chaos. The Mustang gleaming in the sun like a trophy. Karen and her son stumbling in defeat. Her allies frozen in disbelief, and neighbors capturing every humiliating moment. I stepped closer to her, voice rising to dominate every whisper, every gasp from the onlookers. Walk away, take your son, leave this street. Today, you've seen what happens when entitlement clashes with real authority. This is the lesson you'll carry forever. Power is earned, not inherited, and respect isn't demanded, it's enforced. Karen glared, fury and fear warring across her face. She spat on the ground, muttered curses under her breath, but finally stepped back, dragging her son with her. The street fell silent except for the hum of engines from her SUV and the whispers of neighbors, all stunned by the spectacle they had witnessed. I exhaled slowly, letting the adrenaline fade. The Mustang stood untouched, untouchable, a gleaming testament to victory. Karen's reckless gambit had failed spectacularly, but deep down I knew she wouldn't give up. Entitlement rarely surrendered completely. Desperation would only grow, plotting more schemes, more tricks, more manipulations, and I would be ready for every one of them. The sun hung low over the suburban street, casting long shadows across the asphalt. Karen's eyes were wild with desperation. Her son slouched beside her, pale and trembling, barely able to keep up appearances of defiance. You think you've won, she hissed, voice low but venomous. You've humiliated me, yes, but this isn't over, not by a long shot. I stood firm, boots digging into the gravel, arms relaxed, every movement deliberate. The Mustang gleamed in the sunlight behind me, untouched, untouchable. A symbol of authority and dominance. You've already lost, Karen. I said, voice calm but cutting. Every scheme, every desperate move, every trick has collapsed in front of everyone watching. Step back, walk away, learn your lesson. She spun, pulling her phone from her pocket with shaking hands. No, I'll show you. I'll show the neighborhood, the HOA, everyone. You won't get away with this. Her son groaned, but she shoved him aside, her fury and desperation eclipsing any sense of caution. Send more. Get them here. Now. She screamed into the phone. Minutes later, a convoy of black SUVs screeched to a stop at the end of the street. Men in suits, carrying clipboards, radios, and badges. Her last desperate reinforcements. Bored out, faces set with forced authority. Karen's eyes gleamed with hope. See, power in numbers, you won't win. I didn't move immediately. I let the tension stretch, every second amplified by the watching neighbors. Then, slowly, deliberately, I stepped forward. Numbers don't intimidate skill. Bravado doesn't outmatch experience. You brought them here hoping to intimidate me, and you've just ensured the world sees your desperation. One of the men stepped forward aggressively. Chief, step aside. You can't just step back. I said, voice low, dangerous, echoing down the street. This is my jurisdiction. Every step forward you take is another mistake you'll regret. You want chaos, you'll get it, but it won't favor you. Karen, refusing to surrender, grabbed a metal chair again, spinning toward me. I moved instantly, intercepting her with a firm grip, twisting her momentum to make her stumble. She yelped, almost hitting her son in the process. Her allies froze, unsure how to intervene. Her son, trembling but enraged, charged at me. I sidestepped, grabbed his arm, and spun him against the Mustang's hood. Metal clanged loudly. He gasped, staggering back, every ounce of bravado stripped away. Karen shrieked, now desperate, swinging wildly with anything she could reach. Garden tools, trash can lids, anything. I deflected every strike with controlled precision, each motion measured, deliberate, a display of skill and authority. Her allies started murmuring, uncertain, their confidence collapsing in real time. "You're finished," I said, voice booming. "Your tricks, your schemes, your desperate attempts, they've all failed. Every single one of your actions has proven your weakness. Walk away, take your son, leave this street before it gets worse." Karen's lips twitched, rage and fear mixing violently. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "You think you've won? I'll make sure." I cut her off, stepping closer, letting my presence dominate every inch of the street. "No, you'll remember today. You'll remember every failed attempt, every act of desperation. You'll remember that authority, skill, and resolve win when entitlement crumbles. Walk away, now." Her son finally slumped, shoulders shaking. Karen's lips quivered as she spat on the pavement, muttering curses under her breath. Slowly, she backed away, dragging her son with her, her allies frozen and defeated. The neighbors watched in stunned silence, recording every second. The Mustang glimmered behind me like a beacon of victory, untouchable, dominating the suburban battlefield. Karen's final desperate gambit had failed spectacularly. And I knew this showdown would echo through the neighborhood for weeks, a lesson in authority, control, and the power of skill over entitlement. The street fell silent, tension lingering like a storm cloud. I exhaled slowly, letting the adrenaline fade. Karen had one last choice: retreat or escalate further into reckless desperation. The street lay tense, every neighbor holding their breath, phones raised, capturing every second of the chaos that had unfolded. Karen's face was a storm of fury, desperation, and disbelief. Her son trembled beside her, shoulders slumping, his bravado completely shattered. You can't just do this," Karen shrieked, voice cracking. I'll make you pay. Everyone will." "Enough," I said, stepping forward, boots crunching on the gravel. The Mustang glimmered behind me, untouchable, a symbol of authority, control, and unwavering dominance. My gaze swept over her, her son, her allies, and the gathered neighbors, all witnessing the unraveling of entitlement in real time. "No more games, no more schemes. Today this ends. You've tested me, you've failed, and now you will face the consequences of your actions." Her eyes flickered, realizing the futility, but desperation overpowered reason. She lunged forward, attempting one final attack, grabbing a metal garden stake from the lawn. I reacted instantly, one step, one motion, disarming her, twisting her momentum, and sending her stumbling onto the curb. "Step back," I said, voice low, cold, and commanding. "One more reckless move, and the consequences won't just be embarrassing. They'll be irreversible. Public humiliation, legal accountability, total exposure. This is your last warning." Her son tried to intervene, charging toward me with wild anger. I sidestepped, caught his arm, and spun him against the hood of the Mustang. Metal clanged beneath him. He grunted, stunned, completely broken. "This isn't about physical strength," I said, voice cutting. "It's about control, authority, and strategy. You've already lost. Every step you take proves it further." Karen's allies began to back away, realizing their leader's desperation had trapped them in a losing game. Engines hummed, tires squeaked, but no one moved aggressively. Every step I took projected dominance, each word a warning etched into their minds. "You humiliated me. You can't," Karen gasped, shaking, fury clashing with fear. "I already have," I replied firmly, "and now you must choose. Leave this street, retreat, and accept the consequences of your actions, or escalate further and face public, humiliating, and irreversible defeat. This is your moment of truth." Her son finally muttered, voice trembling, "Mom, maybe we should leave." Karen's lips twitched, a mix of rage and defeat. She clenched her fists, then slowly, reluctantly backed away, dragging her son with her. Her phone slipped from her hands, forgotten, as she realized no reinforcements, no tricks, no manipulations could reverse the reality standing before her. I allowed a brief pause, letting the tension hang in the air. Neighbors whispered, phones recording every humiliating second. Karen's allies melted into the background, powerless, exposed, watching as their leader crumbled. Then I exhaled slowly, walking toward the Mustang. The chrome glimmered, polished, untouchable, a beacon of victory and authority. Every step projected calm dominance, letting everyone witness the aftermath of entitlement crushed by skill and control. "Remember this day," I said, voice carrying across the street. "Every failed scheme, every desperate attempt, every act of arrogance. You've seen what happens when entitlement clashes with real authority. Let this be the lesson. Power isn't inherited. Respect isn't demanded. Authority is earned, demonstrated, and enforced. Today, it belongs to me." Karen and her son finally retreated to the edge of the street, shoulders slumping, eyes wide with disbelief. Their plans, manipulations, and desperate gambits had all collapsed spectacularly. The neighbors' murmurs grew into whispers of admiration. Phones clicked, capturing the Mustang, me, and the defeated duo retreating. Authority had triumphed over entitlement, decisively and publicly. I slid into the Mustang, doors locking, engine roaring. The street was mine, the neighborhood reminded that some forces, skill, authority, presence, were untouchable. Karen's cries faded into the distance as I drove slowly down the street, every eye following, every camera recording. Victory was complete. Entitlement had been humbled, chaos had been controlled, and the lesson was crystal clear. Authority isn't challenged with screams or schemes. It's demonstrated with presence, skill, and resolve. The Mustang's engine echoed like a drumbeat of triumph. The street was quiet, yet the memory of the battle lingered, etched forever into the minds of those who had witnessed it. Karen had lost completely and utterly. And I had proven once again that when you master control, respect, and authority, you dominate every challenge in your path. The day ended, the Mustang gleamed, and I drove on, victorious, untouchable, unforgettable.